This is James, otherwise known as the Skate Punk Lefty, back with another video. Let's watch Candace Owens try to rewrite history.
Let's talk a little bit about one of the critiques that's been made of your take on Black America. So you've used language before where you've suggested that people need to get off the ideological plantation, for example. And there's been a critique that basically says, you talk a lot about Black agency. Are you depriving people of agency when you suggest that they've been indoctrinated by the educational system, or when you suggest that they have been sort of told what to think, they've been lied to? Are you suggesting that people aren't freely choosing what it is that they've chosen politically, or do you really believe that it's really not a question of agency, it's a question of misinformation?
Yeah, it's a question of misinformation.
Great question, my Jewish brother Ben Shapiro. Yes, this is taking agency from black people because it's telling you to ignore history and reality of things right in front of you. It's like this. First of all, to be on a so-called democratic plantation and to be in a mindset, you have to ignore actual history books, and you have to ignore the past, especially 60 years of U.S. history, to be a black person that votes Republican. First and foremost. And you will notice that your experiences as a working class person of color are made worse every time it's a Republican in your local or state office or in the presidency. You can see the dog whistling, the racist rhetoric about inner city thugs and welfare queens overrunning the streets of inner cities every day from some Republican that can't just keep their racism to themselves. Not to mention the fact that, Richard Nixon started the drug war and Ronald Reagan helped keep fueling it, pumping, drugs, alcohol, and, crack cocaine into the black community to fund special side, like the Iran-Contra scandals like that. But yeah, to fund the CIA and executing black civil rights leaders and all manners of just terrible rhetoric in this and then it's like a lot of social safety nets and a lot of even deunionization, as it happened, was meant to hurt black people more than it hurt whites, even though it hurt white people too. They already always knew that black people would get hurt worse. So the rhetoric that Republicans have been putting out the past 60 years about inner city thugs and losers and overrunning our cities and how a lot of so-called black people are, and it's like a lot of black people do work for a living and they still do with racism, then going up for bat for the police and all type of just like manner of racist shit that Republicans go up for bat for, that they don't have to go up there, by the way, they go anyway, is the reason why so many black people vote Democrat. And saying that black people should just ignore the shit that Republicans say and the shit that Republicans do and just listen to me, Miss Candace, describe what you should do is very dishonest, and it is taking agency away from black people to think for themselves. Black people are thinking for themselves. That's why they are voting Democrat. But let's see what she has to say.
And people always get me wrong. They think that I say things to be theatrical when I say the democratic plantation. And people go, oh, you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't liken it to slavery. No, actually, if you sit down and you study the model of American slavery, and I say Democrat plantation because at the starting point of the Civil War, all Democrats had slaves. There were no...
Hey, Miss Candace, with your dry ass fucking hair, can you please tell me what party defends the Confederacy? What party calls themselves Tea Partiers? What party calls themselves rebels? What party fucking went into the Capitol with a Confederate flag? What party is David Duke a part of? What party, when every time a neo-Nazi or white supremacist wants to run for office, run as nowadays? What party does every white supremacist and neo-Nazi on the internet invites people to vote for in order to get closer to a more white supremacist America? So I really don't like this shit. Like, yes, during the Civil War era, the Democrats were the conservative party and the Republicans were the liberal party. But especially over time, especially during the 1960s, as this process of ideological change finished, which I can bring up right now. We can just talk about the party switch right now because I love how black conservatives especially act like that this didn't happen. Like the party switch about the Democrat Party developing more liberal and sometimes even left wing and social democratic values winded up oh man, and then the Republicans wound up adopting more. Let me see something. No current party. Let me see something real quick. That's not the party switch I was talking about, dude. Let me see. Maybe this Google question right here to help me get to where I'm going. Yeah, party realignment. That's what I meant. Is that the Republican Party slowly over time started to drift further to the right, and the Democrats drift further towards neoliberalism. Really, McAfee, right now? Or liberalism and social democracy itself. So ignoring, literally ignoring the past 60 years of history again and pretending like there was no realignment of political values between the Republican and Democrat Party. This is not 1860.
Republicans that held a slave, that owned a slave. And when you look at the model of it, right, what was necessary?
I know racist white motherfuckers that vote Republican like, yeah, Republican never owned a slave. But again, what party defends the Confederate flag? What party defends neo-Nazism? What party traffics in conspiracy theories about black people being thugs and being inferior? What party is David Duke a part of? Or fucking Rockwell and all the rest of the fucking fascist scumbag that shit stains on the floor that wind up running for office wind up a part of? They wind up being Republicans every single fucking time. So this bullshit about, what the fuck did she say? Like, a Republican never owned it. Lots of fucking Republican buzzwords, which is a half truth. I noticed this is just like that one Brandon Tatum video I was seeing where they try to act like the Republicans never owned a slave and have always been anti-slavery. And it's just like, hey, have you forgotten the past 60 years of history? Who the Republican Party have aligned themselves with?
Necessary. Illiteracy. Black Americans are not allowed to learn how to read. Look across America today. You can go into inner cities. Here in Los Angeles, you've got Black Americans. 75% of Black boys can't pass a basic literacy exam.
Yeah, this is a disingenuous way to try to virtue signal as socioeconomic problems, especially if we're talking education in the black community, you dirty, cold-hearted bitch, and then not have any actual solutions to the problems that are going on in the black community. Because if we talk about actually funding public schools and bringing them up to par to where young kids, especially young black kids, are educated, this bitch would be like, oh no, I believe in school choice. You should send your child to a charter school. If the school is not good enough, you should fucking somehow send your kid across town 30 minutes to a school full of fucking racist white kids that's gonna treat them like shit. And I'm not trying to throw white people under the bus, but I'm just saying for the simple fact of, that's bullshit. This motherfucker does not give a fuck about the literacy rate in the black community, because if she did, she wouldn't be a fucking Republican. Republicans are the corrupt dipshits that defund public education to the point where it's inadequate, and a lot of young people, both in the black, Latino, and I'm even sure working class white communities, can't learn basic skills like math and reading because they don't have teachers good enough or the supplies good enough to teach them the basic skills of, life. And it's because of people like her in her butt buddy Shapiro right here. So I don't like that. Like, no, don't you even try it. And then it's like, yeah, sure, these cities vote Democrat, but Democrats can only do so much. A much larger federal level problem needs to be addressed here. And it's not just, the Democrats are just like not funding the schools. It's like, no, a national project of investing in the black community, but especially, inner city working class schools of any demographic, because it's not even about being black at that point, even though it will help black children and Latino children the most. But in black neighborhoods, Latino neighborhoods, and even poor white neighborhoods, there needs to be major investment in education. And that will take a federal level response, which we don't get because Republicans say that everything that can address socioeconomic inequality, even when it comes to education, is a handout or authoritarian. So fuck out of here. Like, you don't give a fuck about young black men learning how to read.
Major cities like Baltimore, across 5 schools, they couldn't find a single black child that was proficient in reading or writing. So we are actually seeing through the education system pollution,
No,
the dumbing down.
What you're actually seeing is the effects of systemic racism, redlining, and the effects of the drug war and other social phenomena affecting the black community worse than the white community, often of the time. Because I feel like suburban white schools with mostly, like, maybe it's like 90% white kid. So you got like 5% Asian, and you might have some black or Latino kids go there. Their schools do fine because their schools are fully funded suburban schools. When we did this bullshit where we fund schools through property tax and redline neighborhoods whose homes values were divested by banks and are thought of as worthless because the N-words live there. And then we fund our school with those those itty bitty ass fucking taxes on these houses and other properties. Yeah, you don't get a lot of funding to the school, so you have inadequate education. And again, it would take because we can just stop doing it at any fucking time. If y'all two motherfuckers somehow care about education in the black community or in America in general, we should stop funding schools off property tax. Oh man, this is stupid.
Of all Americans, right? But especially black Americans. And when you dumb down black Americans, that means that they start to look, they're getting their education from culture, right? And that's problematic. Father absence, huge issue. We know you actually were the person that.
We should end the drug war then, right? But the next sentence that come out of y'all mouth better be in the fucking drug war, bro, because I don't want to fucking hear it. And then not even just that, bro. There's been studies that have shown that even though they're not married, black fathers, especially I don't know what the time frame is. Let me actually look this shit up. I know I looked it up before. Man, I need to find that shit because I know it was a CDC study that showed that black fathers, even though they are not necessarily married, but black fathers are more involved. Oh, here we get. Here it is. Whoops. Right here. Black fathers are more involved in their children's lives compared to other racial groups. So this bullshit about black fathers not being involved in their children's lives is just it's just a racist argument to say that all the black fathers are in jail or they just left because they couldn't handle the responsibility.
That woke me up on that. I watched an old video of yours on Black Lives Matter where you talked about, 23% single motherhood rate in the 1960s, 74% at the time that you shot that. I think it's 77% as we're sitting here right now.
And if we're going to talk about that, we need to talk about the drug war that's been raging the past 60 years. When Richard Nixon started the drug war to purposely compensate for the civil rights advancements of black people, he did that shit on purpose to make sure that there would be a neighborhood to prison pipeline for young black youth. And that's the reason why, and then like all these laws, like like the cocaine versus cocaine law was like that's the perfect one, or the reason why weed was illegalized, or it was delegalized, I should say. or how sentencing for certain minor offenses, especially minor drug offenses, were raised up, while people came up with shit like 3 strike laws and what have you. So like, yeah, the rate of black fathers not being in the home is no thanks to how I want to say, black fathers just like being lazy and not wanting to be there. Is more so thanks to the system literally taking young black men from their neighborhoods and putting them in prison. And it's just like, so why are people committing crime? Because they live in poverty. Why they live in poverty? Because of redlining and other racist policies. So we see a full line of dumbass bigotry, even ironically enough, hurting some working class white people, fucking over the black community, instead of addressing it in a positive and more open-minded way. We just go say like, well, black fathers are just like not there, and you just like pedantically like you sound like a fucking airhead. Like you're not thinking about any fucking thing. Like anybody that is not even in like politics like that can guess why black fathers are not in the home. So fucking airheaded, bro. Because I couldn't imagine being this fucking stupid. Just like, okay, black fathers are not in the home as much as white fathers. Why is that? People that were previously slaves, people who are redlining into ghettos, people who were denied socioeconomic advancement. Why are so many of these men in jail? But it's culture. What the fuck is wrong with you, bitch? Like, seriously. I couldn't imagine being this fucking dumb. Couldn't pay me to be this fucking airheaded.
And what was important to maintaining slavery, making sure the family was broken down. They were constantly trading slaves. If you read Frederick Douglass's book, his autobiography.
This is a disingenuous way of, and this is foul. This is foul. It's fuck. The way that you want to talk, I guess the way I would talk about it is like the way that fathers are taken out of the home by the judicial and legal system is similar to slavery. But to try to say that fathers are being like kept out of the home by bad culture and they're forced to vote Democrat is just like breaking up family for slavery, so they should vote Republican and support white supremacy against themselves so they keep families together. When the Republican Party policies of taking away, of maintaining low wages, union busting, seizure of social safety nets, creating laws on the books that cause black people to go spend more time in jail and in prison. Like I don't know, man. Like you couldn't pay me to be this fucking airheaded. Like you couldn't.
In the first chapter, he talks about how he felt nothing when his mother died, felt nothing when he was taken away from his sisters, because that was important to maintaining the slave mentality. So in my book, I have a book on slavery, and I really spell out, when I say Democrat plantations, I mean it. It's been updated, it's been modified, but we are very much still living on the
updated the party that actually supports the Confederacy, though.
Plantation, doing the work for Democrats and getting nothing back, right? Voting for them in 93% margins is, to me.
And first, it's two things to this. Number one, for black people who are stupid enough to think that Democrats are actually not doing something for us, they do a lot. Number one, be thankful that we have people in office, and I say this as a socialist, who are not, and it's like, don't get me wrong, you got people that fuck up. You got people like Hillary Clinton with the super predators thing. You got people like Joe Biden with the crime bill. But every single time a Democrat goes and take their ass on TV, they are not talking about how inner city thugs need to be quelled. Two, Democrats actually introduce and sometimes pass economic and social policies that benefit the black community. Maintaining things like Social Security, SNAP benefits. They're more likely to support unions, more likely to support programs like police reform programs and funding to inner city schools, and more of an abundance of like just liberal, like smart governance, and even sometimes downright social democratic governance. Democrat Party, though not perfect on a lot of things, are damn sure better for black people than the Republican Party. Keep in mind, whenever something bad happens to a black person and it's publicized, what party, what networks take their ass up there trying to justify our murders, our literal sometimes lynchings, our and our socioeconomic depravity. Right now, we're watching two Republicans try to legitimize racist talking points about black people, saying that we're lazy and we just don't work and we're on a plantation. So any black person that thinks like that, like some well, she has a point. The Democrats really never did anything for us. You don't know what the fuck you talking about. Cause I'm tired of hearing that shit.
That's the form of slavery. We're doing the work for you, and we're getting nothing back. Our communities don't get fixed. Our children don't get brighter. So I'm a lot more thoughtful than people give me credit for. It's kind of it sounds like a flamethrower. I'm just
you sound airheaded and ignorant as fuck. Like you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Flamethrower, but I've thought deeply about these topics, and I believe what I say.
So let's talk about some of the cultural influences that you're speaking about. So obviously, there's the culture of politics, which is very much based in race. Politicians have an awful lot of hay to make out of suggesting that people are racist. Kamala Harris is I think the greatest example of this I have ever seen in modern American politics, literally calling Joe Biden a racist, and then 1 year later suggesting that she called him a racist because they're in the middle of a debate, which is about as transparent a move as I can possibly imagine. So you have the culture.
That all you got? What about Trump defending the Nazis at Charlottesville? What about you, Ben, making videos talking about how black people, systemic racism isn't real and slavery and Jim Crow doesn't matter. Black people are just lazy. What about motherfucking, it's just like at some point in mostly every Republican politician's career, they have said some racist shit. So, like, this one-off bullshit where you're like they call everybody racist. They're like friends now, and she called them racist, like, over nothing. And it's just like, yeah, that totally outweighs all the racist shit that Republicans have done over the past 60 years and said over the past 60 years. Sure.
Culture of politics. You have the culture of Hollywood, in which movies are constantly suggesting
you couldn't get into
that black Americans are victims. Recently, there was a movie on Netflix I was watching with my wife in which there was a literal speech by Jamie Foxx about how America was built to keep black women down. And then there is the culture of music. And I want to go through each one of these with you. So in terms of the culture of politics, we've gone through that a little bit. When you look at how Hollywood addresses race, what are the problems that you see there? Because obviously this is mostly a bunch of white executives who are attempting to I think, be sympathetic or empathetic to what they think black Americans believe or want to.
This is not what's happening. What's happening is art, often of the time, is very left-leaning. My favorite example of this is motherfucking Captain America or X-Men are my two favorite examples of this, especially X-Men. I think that one is easier to work with for what I'm doing right now. So, to tell interesting stories about the society that we live in and not be prudish dipshits, most writers and directors are liberal to left-leaning. And you can tell more incisive and better stories talking about things like civil rights, talking about things like anti-fascism, speaking against things like poverty and greed and what have you, than you can worshiping white supremacy or capitalism. You can't tell an interesting story about a well-to-do white person fighting against a black guy that's trying to steal his wife or some shit, if that's what you want. Stuff like that does not make for interesting stories. And stuff like that is also transparently racist. So that's why Hollywood is left-leaning. Because good art and good music has a good message to it. And messages that are like, I want to say, yeah, love white supremacy, love heteronormativity, it's okay to discriminate against people, are just simply not good messages.
to hear or feel. What do you think about Hollywood's messages on race?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, the Democrats control Hollywood. You're not allowed to be a conservative, a vocal conservative, and still keep your job, right? I mean, if you're
I mean, stop spreading white nationalism. I hate when they say this shit. But then when you go in their internet history, like Gina Carano, dumbass. Like, I feel like it was this woman that was fired from Scream 2, right? And then you had a bunch of dumbasses on the IGN comment section on you're talking about something. Where were y'all for Gina Carano? Like, fuck Gina Carano. She's a white nationalist. She's a fucking anti-vaxxer. She's a fucking conspiracy theorist. She's a fucking anti-Semite that ironically works for the Daily Wire. This bitch was on a Mandalorian, but she couldn't keep her bigotry to herself, so her last movie made $800. So yeah, y'all fuck yourselves over. Y'all don't have to believe this bigoted bullshit, but you decide to believe and stick with it anyway, and when it bites you in the ass, you want to act like it's everybody else's fault. It's not. It's your fault.
you're a vocal conservative and you come out and you say something, you're canceled, you're gone, you're out of here. And to me, it's become a huge propaganda machine. And as I mentioned earlier, when you have Black Americans who are not educated, Black Americans like these Black boys and who can't pass a basic literacy exam, well, where are they getting their information from? That means they're watching movies.
Are you serious, man? I gotta pause this. Sorry about that, folks. Be back.
They're watching TV. Hollywood becomes the teachers, right? And I think that the Democrats have understood this for a very long time. And one of the biggest mistakes that conservatives made was giving up the culture war. The culture war is so important because so many people are not going to pick up a book, but they are going to watch SNL. They're going to watch an SNL skit and they're going to accept.
That comes from the motherfucker who's ignoring the past 60 years where Republicans have been going on racist tirades about black people and taking away social safety nets, talking about black women are welfare queens. I'm taking this from this airheaded bitch talking about pick up a book. What books have you fucking read?
That to be some truth, that this must be what's going on because they're making fun of conservatives on Saturday Night Live. And this must be what everybody thinks because it's made it and to the big screen. So
yes, because fuck y'all. Y'all are bad people who deserve to get shunned and made fun of. Because y'all hold values that are about and equivocate to discrimination against other people and the socioeconomic deprivation of the working class. So that's why people don't like you and that's why people make fun of you. Because you're bad people often at a time with bad ideas.
everybody must be feeling this.
I guess we're done here. Yeah, Candace Owens I'm entitled this video, Candace Owens is too stupid to read the past 60 years of history.